Yo, what's going on, snipers, and welcome back to our Chicago Blackhawks franchise mode here in NHL 23. So in last episode we had free agency and we started up the season simulation, and as you can see so far we are 27, 8, and 6, so we're doing really well. The depth scoring on this team has been very solid, and you can see that Asher Vance is leading the team in points, not a surprise, with 30 goals already in his first 41 games, which means likely he is to hit another 50-60 goal season. But anyways, before we get into potentially making a pretty solid trade to even bolster our roster even further, and hopefully it helps us in the playoffs, I do have a couple comments to go over. So the first one, or both of them, are actually from Michael Dost. The first one says, "Wow, I had you winning 50 to 52 games this season, and it looks like that is going to be eclipsed. Don't want that President's Trophy curse though," which is true, which you can see at the moment. We are the best team in the NHL by 5 points. I really hope we don't win the President's Trophy, but at the same time, if we win it, so be it. But hopefully we win a Stanley Cup at the same time, because I have seen some AI teams win the President's Trophy and the Stanley Cup, but I rarely get it done myself. So I hope if we do get the President's Trophy that at least we get the Stanley Cup as well, because if we only get one or the other, it's not going to be as good. Well, I mean, if we only get the Stanley Cup, that's fine, but if we get the President's Trophy and that's it, then I'll be very disappointed again, because this team needs to win a Stanley Cup soon, or else the window is kind of like slowing down in a sense. Like based on the players we have up for renewal this upcoming off season, it's going to be pretty pricey. You can see all the UFAs we have in our lineup, guys like Bales, Corrado, Sanders, Recchi, Morris, Ziska. Like there is a lot of them, Howden even. So there is going to be quite a big overturn, I think, with this team this offseason. But obviously I'm going to do my best to keep this team together as much as possible for next season as well, and seasons beyond that. And then the last comment from Michael says, "I would look at trading for the St. Louis player. He is making $11 million, but that contract is up at season's end, and you can let him go, though." So he's talking about Emmanuel Brossoit. We technically have the cap space, but I will be trading away a roster player in this trade, just because, or else basically I wouldn't know really where or who to scratch in our lineup. As you can see right now, we have Vance, Reefer, Sanders, Corrado, Kabanov, Recchi. Gustafson's jumped up a lot with Adamski and Martins, and we got Zubras, Ziska, and Bales. So basically what I'm going to do is likely I'm going to be trading away Bales, who's been here a long time. He's one of the older players on the team at 30 years old. And then I'll probably move Martins down to a fourth line role, likely. And then if we bring in Brossoit, he'll probably take over the second line spot where Corrado is. Corrado will get jumped down to the third line. And Brossoit might take top line time, depends on who is better fit for that top line, him or Sanders. But I am very excited to bring in Brossoit, because this makes our top six even more legitimate. He's also only on a 1-year deal, so we'll be able to let him walk in the offseason if we don't have the cap space to bring him back. But this team is going to be really good looking. It's just all about, obviously, how are we going to actually do when we get to the playoffs, though, because once we get into the playoffs, we're like a completely different team than the regular season. We've been dominant during the regular season the last few years, but we haven't gotten it done really much in the playoffs. So hopefully this is the year for us to win another Stanley Cup, because that would be great, because I don't know if our roster is going to be much better than this at any point, at least in terms of depth. So there is that. So let's get into making that trade for Brossoit. He is on the Blues, and I was looking actually at the trade finder, and there was ones where we'd give up like prospects like Huxley and stuff like that. But like I said, I don't really want to be like just scratching Bales and letting him be a depth forward. I need to get rid of a roster player in order to do this trade, I think, just because it makes a lot more sense from a logical standpoint. So likely we'll bring in Brossoit, get rid of Bales, and then one of these guys, actually Phil Riley, would be just still the depth option and stuff that way instead. So because if I scratch Bales, I'd have to send probably Okposo down to the AHL, and I don't want to do that because he'd go through waivers, and he's a good playoff goaltender, and we need him for the postseason in case our goaltending isn't doing that well. So let's go to our trades and make a trade with the St. Louis Blues. So they did want some of our prospects, like I said, but I would rather get rid of a roster player in order to make this work. As you can see, the St. Louis Blues aren't doing too well. They are 18-18-3, so they're looking to offload some good players. Backlund's also up there, but Brossoit is what we're after 87 overall at 31. He was the 10th overall pick. I believe that's the same year Asher Vance was drafted, if I'm not mistaken. I'm going to have to take a look at that. Yeah, he's we don't know for sure if he's going to fit our team. He apparently fits our fourth line, but we're going to be definitely playing him on our first or second line. And obviously, he's going to be getting some power play time as well. But he's got good offensive awareness, good passing, even good shooting. And he's been a pretty solid player in this franchise mode. He hasn't been, I would say, an elite player by any standards, but he had like a couple 80-point seasons. And yeah, he does score a decent amount of goals for a playmaker. So one other thing I didn't even notice until I was looking at this before this episode is the St. Louis Blues have not been that good of a playoff team. As you can see, Brossoit, every time he's been in the playoffs, he's been eliminated in the first round. So hopefully that doesn't carry over to us. Hopefully he can get out of the first round, but he has not been a really good playoff player in a sense. Like with the Blues, he's been a -14 through 21 games, 9 points only. It's not, I wouldn't say it's because of him. I would say it's probably because the team around him wasn't maybe that good, but yeah, this guy definitely needs a chance at winning the Stanley Cup, I think. So hopefully we can give him that this season. So Brossoit, we'll take him, and they wanted our first round pick from this year or for next year, and I would rather give up this year's just because I don't know how next year we're going to be. So we're going to give up our pick for this year. They did technically want some prospects, but I am going to be giving them Bales in this trade, and then we're going to probably have to throw in something else as well. But yeah, Bales is going to be the roster player going back. He's had an okay season, but he's not that great of a player. Like I would say he's kind of an underrated player because he's had like some 30, 40-point seasons, but we haven't really been able to utilize him. He's a very good defensive forward, though, in a sense. Like, you look at his shorthanded point totals, 13 shorthanded goals over his career with us in 21 shorthanded points. But he's just not gotten a lot of ice time with this team, and maybe he'll get a better role with the St. Louis Blues if they are to re-sign him for multiple seasons. So, yeah, Bales is going to be part of this trade, and I'm probably going to have to add something else to this because Huxley had more value, and they wanted Huxley in this deal originally. So we will have to add maybe a different prospect if there is anybody they like. I wouldn't mind getting rid of Tommy Ribeiro because Tommy Ribeiro is not going to pan out. He's a 75 at 23 with only top 6 potential. They also do like Gustavo Brown, but I think Gustavo Brown's a better fit for the NHL. They do want Tayupkin, but Tayupkin is going to be an NHL goalie within a year. I could easily throw in another pick into this trade instead. Let's try and throw in a 4th round pick into this deal. They want the picks, so a 1st and a 4th, and Bales for Brossoit. And wow, that's accepted. Okay, that's kind of surprising. We get that done really easily. We get an 87 overall by trading away Bales. Does suck to get rid of Bales because, like I said, he's been a very good defensive forward and a mainstay on the PK, but I do like that trade quite a bit. So I am going to quickly throw in the other depth guy for a second. Brossoit dropped down to an 85, which is kind of weird. So for now, I'm going to basically take out Corrado. I'm going to put Brossoit in that spot. I'm going to take out Martins, put Corrado in that spot, and then take out Riley and put Martins in that spot. And then hopefully our team is ready to go. So Brossoit, let's see, how does he fit our lineup? He's actually a better fit for the top line. How about Sanders? Sanders is also a good fit for the top line. So I'll probably, I don't know which one I want to keep where. I'll probably just keep it like this. And if Brossoit is kind of underperforming, maybe we give him a chance with Vance instead. Brossoit was the 10th overall pick in 2025. And yeah, it was the same year as Vance went number 2. That's kind of neat. Maybe I should play them together just because of that. It doesn't really change anything. Who has the better fit, though? Let's see. So Brossoit or Sanders has 3 greens. They both have 3 greens, but they're in difference. Offensive strategy, efficiency, energy bias, and carrying jump bias. And then no offense, not on the offensive strategy for Sanders. Let's try Brossoit on the top line, see how it is. And if he's not doing well, then we'll move Sanders back up. But I really like this team right now. Like, this might be the deepest forward core I've had in quite some time. So there is our trade. And let's actually take also a look at where Bales fits in the lineup for the St. Louis Blues as well. How are we in terms of salary cap at the moment as well? Wow, we still got $8 million in salary cap. That's pretty impressive with the type of roster we have on paper. But let me take a look at where Bales fits in St. Louis's plans, because I hope that they don't just randomly flip him away again, but they honestly might do that. He's getting a chance to play on their third line. So he's getting a little bit of an elevated role from where he is on our team. So, but he's not getting into the top 6. But still, he's getting to play with former player Phil Brigley. So he gets to play with, I think, his former line mate, which is kind of neat. So at least there's that. And also Dimitri's Hart's there too. So a lot of former players in St. Louis. But that's probably going to be our only major trade we do this season because we've been so dominant. So watch, this trade's going to make us lose a lot more though, because for some reason when you just make a subtle change like that, all of a sudden everything breaks. So we'll see how we do to end this month. And hopefully Brossoit helps out that offense even more than it already is. And wow, we've already won the first 2 games, but then we lost the next 2. There's another loss, and Howden has been injured. That kind of sucks, but at least we have Okposo who's going to get some playing time because of that. So let's just go replace player on that. But yikes, Howden was having a good season, so he might be out of the race for the Vezina because of that injury. And yeah, we're losing a decent chunk of games this month now because of the changes, but oh well. 31, 12, and 8 is still fantastic. We are now the second best team in the NHL as the Canucks have passed us. So that's good too, because we're not going to win the President's Trophy if the Canucks keep winning games. But yeah, that Howden injury kind of sucks a lot, because I want the guy to win another Vezina, but yeah, that Howden injury really sucks kind of, because he was in the race for the Vezina, and I don't know if that's going to hold him back because he's out till March, so yeah, that blows, but at least Okposo is going to get a chance to play because of that. Yeah, that sucks about Howden getting injured because he was in the race for the Vezina at this point in time, but since he's out till I think March, he's probably going to get knocked out of the Vezina race in that sense, but at least Okposo is going to get some playing time because of that. So let's keep on rolling and see how we do for this month. As Gustavo Brown's been injured in Rockford, let's just go replace player. Rockford's also had a really good season so far, as they probably should with the amount of good prospects and stuff. So a lot of these guys might be in the NHL next season. Let's see, Gustavo Brown, he's a center. Like, literally, look how deep this roster is. Like, Burrish and Lorakainen are NHL players. Huxley's an NHL player almost. Brown's almost. Corbett's almost. Like, McNabb technically even. This guy was a first-round pick of ours that I honestly didn't even remember, but he's also, like, technically an NHL player. And you also have Hutton, Komachi, Knights is getting close. You also have Tayupkins, who's getting close. Huey, who's already a backup. Like, this team is stacked. If this AHL team doesn't win a Calder Cup, I will be surprised. But then again, this game can throw random shit at you like that sometimes. Let's continue to go to the end of this month. Hopefully we can still string together some wins with Okposo as our backup goaltender. It's also going to give a chance for our other goaltender to get a little bit more playing time, which is good. Huxley's been injured with a mild concussion. Let's go replace player, but sucks that the AHL is suffering a little bit of injuries here. Yeah, we're definitely losing a bit more games since that injury, so that kind of sucks, but at the same time, we don't really want to win that President's Trophy, so at least that injury to Howden's going to help us lose a little bit more than we regularly are, so we're probably not going to make any more trades just because might as well keep the roster together. We also have guys in the system I could easily call up, and this game's glitching out here. Calm down. Yeah, we've lost a lot of games since making this trade, but who knows, maybe we'll turn it on in the playoffs. We are still winning our division with 77 points. But yeah, we're not the best team in the league by a good margin now, as the Canucks are 86 points. So we have fallen off quite a bit. We're only 3 points up on the Stars as well, so we might not end up winning our division, but that is okay with me. Holy shit. Okay, Vance is almost at 50 goals already. He should easily hit 60 goals this season. In his point per game wise, he might hit 100 points this year. Or actually, maybe not 100 points. And maybe 90 something. We'll see how good the rest of his season is, but he should easily hit another 60 goal season. He's going to hit another 50 goal season, which will put him at 9 50 goal seasons, I think. And I was actually looking, and that would be tied for the second most in NHL history. The most is Ovechkin with 10 50 goal seasons. So Asher Vance is almost the best goal scorer in NHL history on that front. Let's go to a day before the deadline and see what we're working with record-wise. 35, 18, and 9. Yeah, I don't know if there's any need to make any changes. How has Brossoit been since bringing him in? Maybe I move him back down to the second line. 19 points in 21 games. He's been phenomenal. Can't ask much more out of that. And how has Sanders' production dropped off? Still doing really well, 52 points. Yeah, I think we'll keep it the same then. Brossoit seems to be doing well with Reefers and Vance, so I don't think there's really anything else we could upgrade on this team. This team is probably as stacked as it's going to get. So, obviously the goaltending doesn't look great right now, but once Howden's back, we're going to be great. Glebov is dropping off because he's not getting enough ice time. I don't know why he was listed as a top 4 defenseman, but we could easily trade him away in the offseason at the draft probably, because I don't know if he's going to want to play for this team when he's being a depth player instead of a top 4 as a 79 overall. Don't get that. But oh well. Let's continue. We'll go past the trade deadline and see if there was any good trades at the deadline, any former players getting dealt, but we're not making any trades ourselves. We are going to be a good enough team to finish off the season, so let's see what happens at the trade deadline. Atu Ratu on waivers. No thank you. You have dropped off a cliff and we don't really need you. 36, 18, and 10. Let's take a look if there was any former players dealt at the deadline. And then we'll simulate the rest of the season, and Howden will be back soon. So do I see any former players? Korchinski got dealt to Boston from Florida, so there's one former player. Not Cameron Kavanaugh, that's a different Kavanaugh. Trying to see if there's any former players or anybody that I recognize. Oh, Niedermacky got dealt from Buffalo to Calgary because he was in the last year of his deal, because we traded him to Buffalo when he was making $6 million. Well, Buffalo offloads him to Calgary, so that's where he's going to be potentially in the playoffs likely, I would assume. And Brennan Bales did get dealt from St. Louis right after we dealt him to St. Louis this year, so he's going to be on 3 teams this year. He gets dealt to the Toronto Maple Leafs for a second-round pick in a defensive prospect, so that's interesting. I don't think I've seen a player get dealt multiple times in a season, but there you go. And Yuri Ovechkin got dealt from Colorado. We dealt him there in the offseason. They trade him away for 2 third-round picks and a prospect. So a couple of former players got dealt. Interesting. It's going to be interesting to see what Bales' stats are looking like at the end of the season, though, with Toronto, just because he's literally been with 3 teams this year. Hopefully Toronto's actually using him in the lineup. Let's actually take a look at that. Just add a little bit more story to this season. Let's see where Toronto's playing him in the lineup. Hopefully in the same role. Yep, he's the 3rd liner in Toronto. Good to see. Good to see. We'll see what his stats look like at the end of the year as well, just because I think it'll be kind of neat to see what he did with all 3 of these teams. But that means he's going to be likely in the playoffs, right? Yeah, he's on to the first best team in the Atlantic Division. So if we get to a Stanley Cup Finals against the Toronto Maple Leafs, you know, we're going to be playing against Bales, and maybe that trade will come back to bite me in the ass somehow. Who knows? Corrado's been injured with a concussion. Let's go replace player, but at least he'll be back for the playoffs. Still don't like that we're getting slapped with injuries at this stage. And Aiden Howden is finally back from injuries, so that's a massive thing to have back. He missed a good chunk of time. I didn't really want him to miss time, but at least he's back. I don't think he's going to win a Vezina because of that injury, which is unfortunate, because he already has 1 Vezina in his trophy case. It would have been nice to see him get 2, but who knows, maybe he'll continue to win some games down the stretch. As Ziska's been injured, let's just go replace player, because we know we're going to be a playoff team at this stage. So how long until these guys are back? Vance has dropped down to 55 goals, so he's on a little bit of a slow pace lately, but he should still hit 60 goals likely, because I can't see him scoring less than 5 goals in the next 8 games. I just don't feel like that's going to happen. We have not clinched the playoff spot yet, but we're very close to doing that. The Stars actually passed us in the standings, so that's kind of interesting. Let's continue simulating. But hopefully those guys are back soon. I'm kind of glad that we're not winning our division anymore, because there else would be a first-round exit guaranteed. There you go. Now we've clinched a playoff spot because of that one win that we just got, or those 2 wins. Who was it that was back? It was Corrado. Okay. Wasn't sure exactly who was back. So we'll throw him in, and we'll throw Riley in because we don't want Glebov playing forward. So I'll throw Riley in for now because Ziska's not full health. So gotta wait till Ziska's fully healthy. Wow, we've won 4 straight games here near the end of the season. Kind of like to see it, but kind of don't. I just don't want to be a first round exit this year. Okay, Ziska's back. A lot of this bottom 6 and stuff like that is pending UFA, so it's going to be interesting to see what happens this offseason, but obviously we got to focus on the playoffs ahead of us, since at least we're going to the playoffs. 2 more games, a loss, and a win. So we finished 48, 23, and 11, and we actually tied for first best in our division, but Dallas Stars are going to end up winning it because they had more regulation wins. And Asher Vance had a 64-goal season. Almost tied a career high for him because he had 65, I think, one year. But what a year for Vance. Almost 100 points as well. Let's take a look at the team stats and in our player stats. And take a look at around the league as well. And also see who we are facing in round 1. So we were the 5th best team in the NHL. The Vancouver Canucks win the President's Trophy with 112 points. Goals for per game wise, we kind of fell off a little bit, but still number 6 in the league. That's pretty good. I'll take it. Goals against per game wise, we fell off a little bit because of Howden's injury likely, but we still finished 5th best in the NHL. That's a good spot. Power play percentage 19.1, which is in 6th. So we're on good spots. Like, it's not like we're at top of the league in anything right now, but we are still doing relatively well in mostly everything. Our penalty kill, on the other hand, was not good. So that's something that hopefully fixes itself in the playoffs, because if it doesn't, I might have to make some adjustments to it. We had 5 shorthanded goals, 29, 9, and 3 on home ice, and 19, 14, and 8 on the road. So much better home team, 7, 2, and 1 in our last 10 games going into the playoffs. Let's take a look at those stats. Take a look at these. So Vance, yeah, the 64-goal season, 98 points, a plus 42. What a year for Asher Vance again. This guy is definitely going to be in the Channel Hall of Fame. 727 goals already at this stage. And he could play for another 4 to probably another 6 years, my guess. Maybe even longer than that. Just based on Parrot in my Anchorage series. That guy's been playing for a long, long time. You never know how long Vance will play for. But Vance is definitely a consistent goal scorer. 2 60-goal seasons in his last 4 seasons. 3 60-goal seasons in his last 9. This guy's unreal. Unreal. Has he dropped down at all? Or no, he hasn't. Good. As long as he maintains that potential, that's good. And his contract is an absolute steal. Emil Reefer's 82 points. Not too bad. Point per game. Love to see it. He has, he's been dropping off a little bit production-wise, but he's been a very good defensive forward as well, at a sense, with the two-way ability. I do like his stats still. Not as much goals this year for him, though. Cabanov, 58 points. That's not too bad. 26 goals, which might be a career high. No, it's not. Last year was a career high, but still not too bad. I don't really like that I paid him $9 million, but I think he's kind of worth it in a sense. He's a good depth scoring option for that second line. Topi Martins, though, wow, 42 points. That's with averaging only 10 minutes of ice time, so he got some short-handed time, and he also played on the 4th line, I think, so that's pretty good numbers. Adamski, I'm not sold on. 20 goals, 37 points. He's listed as a second liner, an 80 overall. I might have to look at flipping him away in the offseason if we want to free up cap, but his contract is not terrible. It's not terrible. Ziska, 28 points in 77 games. I believe he's a pending UFA as well. And then Riley had 3 points in 13 games. Left wing wise, Gustafsson finished with 35 points in 82 games. Not a bad rookie year for Sven Gustafsson. He got some short-handed time, which is nice. So we'll see if that guy can continue to grow like that, because he might be a good top 6 option next season. Right wing wise, Brossoit finished with 76 points in 80 games, and he had 42 points in 41 games with us. Plus 15. Love to see it. Love to see it. Hopefully he has a good playoffs ahead of him as well. Because I don't like when I trade for players and then they just don't do anything postseason-wise. They only do stuff in the regular season. So hopefully Brossoit could help that offense out in the postseason as well, even though he hasn't had good playoffs in the past. So there is Brossoit. Then we have Kent Sanders, who finished with 69 points this year, plus 28. He is a pending UFA, so he's going to be likely expensive as well. I don't know if we hold on to both him and Brossoit. We probably would have to choose one or the other, and I would probably lean towards Sanders because he's younger. But good season though for Kent. Recchi finished with 53 points. Pretty solid, but he is a pending UFA again, so hopefully his asking price comes down a little bit. Because, yeah, I don't know if he's worth $9 million if he wants that again. Corrado, 42 points, pretty solid. He's also a pending UFA. He played only 72 games, so yeah, very good season from him. And Zubris had 38 points. So the depth scoring on the offensive front, really good. Really, really good. Like, obviously Vance and Reefers ran away with most of the points, but the depth scoring on this team was great. Like, the worst offensive player had 28 points, and that was Ziska. From a defensive standpoint, really good numbers as well. Jokela really struggled in the second half, it looks like, because I think he had a really good first half, but 48 points in 80 games, a plus 36. We might be a little bit overpaying on him in a sense, like he has an extension kicking in next season, but I do really like Jokela in a sense because he's a good complementary piece to have next to Brunstrom, it seems like. So not a bad contract considering he's a good defensive forward as well. So I do like that from Jokela. He outperformed Brunstrom, who's much better overall-wise, and making, I think, more money. He had $10 million, and I believe we're paying Jokela starting next season like $8 million. So that's kind of interesting. Len Morris, he's also a pending free agent. He had 27 points this year, and he was a plus 30. So I don't know how long Len is going to be here much longer because he might want to leave, but he's been a very solid defenseman, kind of. Well, two-way defender, I guess, but he's more defensively minded in my opinion. Braden Del Monte in his rookie season, 18 points and a plus 9. He had 9 goals, 9 assists, and it was a plus 9. So this guy should probably be wearing number 9, but unfortunately that's a retired number. Reginald Spiller, 16 points and a plus 29. That's pretty good from Spiller. At least plus minus wise. So offensively, like he's supposed to be, isn't as good. So I don't really know what we do with Spiller. He is a pending RFA, I think, again, but yeah, he's not really the offensive defenseman that I thought he would be when we drafted him. Tkachuk, 10 points plus 3. He should probably be in the top 4 next season, so there should be maybe some overturn in our defensive core. Like, Morris and Spiller could be both gone, and then technically we could get Del Monte and Tkachuk into the top 4 because they're both listed as top 4, but I don't know. And wow, 7 points in 10 games from Artem Glebov. He was getting used as a forward mostly, but this guy produced actually really well. Huh. Well, that's interesting. At least we have a good depth defenseman. Goaltending-wise, Howden played 43 games this year. He was 29-9-4 with a .912 and a .264. So he would have been fantastic and probably won a Vezina, but I think the lack of games is going to hurt him a little bit. Gustavo Blackburn kind of struggled a bit when he was starter. But who knows, maybe he'll be a good playoff goalie. And then Neda Pozo came in and was actually really good. He had a .926 save percentage through 5 games. He might get a chance this playoff run to play some games if Howden and Blackburn don't do good. So, going to be interesting to see what happens this postseason for sure. But there is that. Let's take a look at the entire league point-wise as well. See who led the NHL in points. Sylvain Parks in Montreal and Lou Manlow as well. It's always those two guys, huh? Always those two guys. Frolov up there with 104. Cornet also had 102. And Kolnick. So the Islanders had 3 players over 100 points. And then Parks and Manlow were also over 100 points. Vance was number 9 or number 8. Wait, 3, 6. Yeah, number 8 in points. And there looks like there's a chance that he might be a Richard winner. Is he a Richard winner? No, he's not. Oh, god damn it. He was one of 2 players to hit 60 goals, but Chase Baumgartner, who was the first overall pick a couple years back, 5 years back, ends up winning it. God damn it. Vance was that close to winning another Richard, but he just gets edged out by a younger guy. Damn, that sucks. But still, Vance, incredible season. Can't ask really anything more of him. He's done whatever he can for this team. So let's take a look at potential Selke candidates. Face-off wise, Connor Bedard's likely up there, 54% on the draw and 146 takeaways. Robichaud probably wins it though, 57% on the draw and 140 takeaways. And yeah, it's probably going to go to Robichaud, my guess. Or Devin Doyle might be up there too if the 56% on the draw. But likely it's Robichaud, my guess. So there's that. From a defensive standpoint, the most points by a defenseman was Thomas Christensen with the Islanders, 70 points. Reed up there, Pisani, Langlois, who we could have traded for. Quinn Hughes, who was a free agent. Nobody up there for us on the defensive point production-wise. Goalie-wise, the best goaltender this season in terms of wins was Safronov in Dallas. Vic Zeeler and Vorobiev and Boyle up there with 42. A couple of 40-win goaltenders. Best save percentage by a starter that played a lot of games. Melnick had a 919 through 57 games. But Vic Zeeler with a 915 through 74. Wow. And former goalie of us, Rudy Pitton, had a 914 through 30 games. Damn, that's crazy. Vorobiev up there with a 912. Best goals against average by a starter is for Vorobiev in Vancouver, though. Well, Melnick, too. And then also Aiden Howden was up there for us, but the lack of games played, he's not going to win the Vezina. It's likely going to end up going to Zeeler, my guess, based on the amount of games he played. Like, he almost played every game, and he had a 915. Any goalie goals for fun? No goalie goals. Any goalie assists? That's crazy amount. Vic Zeeler, 5 assists. Howden had 3 assists, so that's kind of crazy for the amount of games he played. Rookie skater-wise, the best rookie this year was Jamie Morrow, 59 points. 17th overall pick. That's pretty crazy. Ladine was also tied. Actually, yeah, they might give it to Ladine because of the plus-minus. Olvestad had a better plus-minus, though, but way less points. Huh. So there is that. Now the question is, who are we going to be playing in round 1? And then I'll be it for this episode. Likely all playoff episodes will be pre-recorded just because obviously I want to see if this team can win a Stanley Cup. So we are going to be taking on Minnesota. Minnesota. Who went 48-25-9. So fairly similar record to us because we went 48-23-11. So technically we had 2 extra OT losses. They had 2 extra regulation losses, and that's the only difference. They also had a good record in their last 10 games, so this might be a very close matchup, which is very unfortunate for us. I hope that we just dominate them somehow, but let's take a comparison to them in the regular season first before we take a look at their rosters. So, yeah, they literally finished 2 points behind us. We were better offensively. We were better defensively. They were better on the power play by 0.8%, and they were much better on the penalty kills. So their special teams are better than ours. We're better 5-on-5, and that's basically the difference. Like, shorthanded goals even are pretty close. Yeah, this might be an interesting matchup. I don't know what their roster looks like. Actually, I kind of do. Because I think I was looking last time I recorded, and I think Ville Pettersson is still there. I think. Yeah, Ville Pettersson is still there, so we'd still have to face a former player, unfortunately. But their top line, actually, this is a good-looking team. Oh, they have Satchel Pielmeyer as well. Yeah, we played them last year, didn't we? Or was it the year before? I feel like we played them recently. I can't remember what year it was, but top line, Eno Kiskinen, Ville Pettersson, our former player who's 34 years old now. He got signed to a crazy contract, and he's been a decent offensive player for them, but look at his career plus-minus. He is a career minus 199. That might be the worst plus-minus I've ever seen from a two-way forward. But, yeah, he's getting paid more than Asher Vance is right now, which is hilarious. I also have Rick Harkner on this first line, and then second line-wise, Lee Marsh, Kent Janik, and Jacob Pollock. Third line of Gabriel Gerbe. the double G's, Joshua Sweat and Seth Thornton, and a fourth line of Tobias Germain, Harvey Bancroft, and our former player Sasha Pielmeyer. How was his season? 51 points. He's been a pretty good player. Kind of miss him in a sense, but we had to get rid of him when we did. So, and yeah, he was over point per game last year in the playoffs. Or was that last year? I think that was last year. Which means I think, yeah, we knocked him out in the first round, I think, and then we lost in round 2, right? If I remember right. Defensively, they have Jason Appleby and Jorgen Markstrom. Why do I recognize the name? Philadelphia? Washington. Oh, this was a guy I could have picked in the draft, I think. I feel like, at least. Yeah, he did play for Philly. Yeah, I think, and he was for Washington. Yes, I do remember this dude. Because we could have traded for him way long ago when he was on the trading block, but we didn't. Yeah, I remember him for sure. They also have Heimo Salmi and Hommel, and then they also have Toby Rome and Preston Harding. That defensive core is not very good, so I hope that we can take advantage of that because their offense is pretty good. Goalie-wise, though, they have changed their goaltenders because I did see that Matthew Addison was a free agent last year. I think. Nicholas Melnick is their starter, so he was their backup last year, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, he was their backup last season. He has never played a playoff game before in his career. And they also have Jackson D. Nicola, who's another goaltender that's medium elite that they must have traded for, I guess. Huh. Depth-wise, they have Mark Appleby, Elliot Jenks, and Fabian Raleigh. Why do I recognize Fabian Raleigh? Probably from Vancouver. Yeah, it's probably from Vancouver, likely. So anyways, guys, that's going to do it for this episode of our Chicago Blackhawks franchise mode. So in next episode, we'll take it to round 1 against a tough-looking Minnesota Wild team as we look to beat them and hopefully get to the second round and hopefully beyond that as well, as we probably have our best roster we've ever had up to this point. So anything down below, and I'll see you guys next time.